Hello, it's so good to have you here. This is Chinya from Impeccable Lounge. Being able to confidently navigate around the table, it's important. A lot happens over a meal. So today I want us to be able to know what is a place setting. What are the types of place setting? How am I able to identify my fish fork from my dinner fork? So let's start with, what is a place setting? A place setting simply means how we arrange our utensils, our dinnerware, our glassware on the table. Then of course we have two types of place setting. We have the formal place setting and we have the informal or the casual place setting. What is the difference? The formal place setting, the table covering or the tablecloth is mostly white. Most formal place setting, you always see the tablecloth white. So that's how you know, oh wow, I'm in a place setting, I'm in a formal setting environment. Another thing is, for a formal setting, you have more utensils because multiple courses are going to be served in a formal setting. Also, you would notice in a formal setting that you have more glasswares. So oh wow, you're going to have, more than one drink being served. So let's look at the basics of a place setting. Number one, you always, arrange the utensils, or you see that the utensils are arranged from outside in. That means is the first course meal. That is the first utensil you're going to see on the outside. That's the first one you're going to see. What do I mean? Supposing we're going to have soup, for example, as our appetizer. The soup spoon is going to be the first spoon you're going to see here, because that's the first meal, the first course you're going to have for that meal. So your utensils are arranged from outside in. Another basic is all your forks are arranged on the left side with one exception. The oyster fork is always on the right side. That's the only, see it, it has 3 turns, 1, 2, 3. This is the only fork you see on the right side of your place setting. Your knives on your right side. Then also, do not cluster the table. Only have what the utensils you need at every given time. For example, if you're going to have a 12-course meal, oh yes, you have actually 12-course meal. If you're going to have a 12-course meal or a 7-course meal, you're not going to arrange everything on the table at the same time. No. As you're done with the particular utensils, they are moved out before you serve another course meal. So have only the utensils you need at every given time. Okay, let's look at the formal place setting. Remember, we said for the formal place setting, it means that you're going to have multiple courses being served. So we're going to have more utensils. So let's start with, remember we said, you place your utensils outside inwards, meaning to say the first course meal is the first cutlery you're going to find, before you walk your way inwards. So let's assume we're going to have like soup as an appetizer. So we're going to have the soup spoon here. Now we have our dinner plate on top of our plate charger. Then remember we said we're going to have our soup. So we have our soup plate on top of our dinner plate. Because once you're done with the soup, it goes away before you move over to your entree. Your entree could be anything. Let's say we are going to have an entree centered around, okay, we do it two ways. Let's say we're going to have entree that will have like chicken, some vegetables, maybe some sweet potato or some rice. So we have our dinner knife. The dinner knife is the largest knife you always find on your place setting. This is your dinner knife. Like I said earlier, when you set the table, the blade of the knife should always face inwards. Now let's just go overboard. Let's assume we don't even know. We just came in this is the place setting is a formal place set, and we have various knives on the table. Maybe at the end they'll decide to do a 3-course meal or a 4-course meal or whatever. So this is our dinner knife. Now we can also find the fish knife. They might decide to do a fish as your entree. So this is a fish knife. See the difference between a dinner knife and a fish knife? Can you see that this is your fish knife? So this is the way the fish knife looks, and this is your dinner knife. You can't miss it. The knife is the shape is this way because you don't when you're eating your fish, you don't cut through the bones. You lift from the edges. That's how you lift. That's why you have the shape this way. You don't you don't cut. You're not going to cut your fish like this. You don't cut through the fish because a lot of fish being served already comes with the bones. So you use this to lift up the flesh from the two sides. So that's why you see the shape this way. Then the regular knives we see, the shape is this way, you see? But this is the fish knife. So let's assume, we might serve, you don't know what you're going to be served, as your entree. So let's just place your dinner knife. Then we have beside the dinner knife, on the left side of the dinner knife, we have the fish knife. Remember, we're serving for a 3-course meal, but I just wanted to show us, the difference between the fish knife and the dinner knife. That's why I'm placing it here. So now that we have our soup spoon on the right side of our dinner knife, then we have the fish knife on the left side of the dinner knife. Then on your left side, remember we said the forks always stay on the left side with one exception of the oyster or the cocktail fork. That's the only one that stays on the right side of your place setting. Now, the dinner fork is also the largest. See that? So this is our dinner knife. So the dinner knife is next to your plate. Remember, this is your plate here. Then we have the fish. The fish fork is different. See the difference? See the difference? This is the fish fork. The fish fork is different from the dinner fork. The shape is different from other forks you see. So the dinner knife is close to your plate. Then we have the fish knife left side of your dinner knife. I'm just placing this as I said earlier, because I wanted us just to be able to identify, the fish knife or the fish fork whenever you say it. But remember, we're actually setting for a 3-course meal. Then the next thing we're going to have, we have our salad. The salad fork is this one on the left side. Remember we said all our forks are on the left side. Now another thing I wanted to show us. Now our butter spreader. This is out for our butter. See, this is for the butter. So supposing you're having an appetizer, your soup is an appetizer, and you might be served with your bread. This is the bread plate. Remember, it's a 3-course meal we're serving. So we're going to have like our sweets at the end, which is our dessert. So our dessert fork is this one. This is our dessert spoon. Placed over here with our dessert fork placed over here. I'm going to zoom it, okay? Now, I showed us earlier the oyster fork. This is the only fork that has 3 tines. 1, 2, 3. The other ones have 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember, I'm just putting these things here because I wanted to show you the difference between the oyster fork, the fish fork. Remember, I'm serving for a 3-course meal. So at the end, you're not going to use all these utensils, but I want you to be able to identify it, you know, when you walk into a fine dining restaurant. So the oyster fork is always next to your soup spoon. And as I said, it's the only fork that stays on your right side. Now, here we have the water goblet. The water goblet always comes first. Your red wine glass comes next to it. Remember, in the previous video, we talked about how these different wines complement, you know, our food. Then next to the red wine glass, we have our white wine glass. Then finally, you have the champagne glass, which is served before, you know, your dessert. So this is how you find your formal setting. Then of course you have your napkin. We're going to do, you know, have our napkin etiquette, you know, in our subsequent videos. So I'm going to zoom this so you can see. Okay, so this is for a formal place setting. Remember, I said, for example, it's a 3-course meal, but I decided to add more utensils because I wanted to show you the difference between your salad fork, your dessert fork, your dessert spoon, your fish fork, your oyster fork, and your fish knife. But remember, this is for a 3-course meal we're having, which simply a 3-course meal could entail your appetizer, your entree, which is the main dish of the meal, then of course your dessert. So you're not going to use this everything you're going to use everything set on this table. I just wanted to show us, you know, so we can be able to identify. Supposing you walked into a fine dining restaurant and, you know, you're having a dinner or lunch with someone and there's a fish course. So you're able to know your fish knife. You're able to know the fish fork. You're able to know, oh, this is your cocktail fork. That's the only fork that stays on the right. So it's not strange to you. I'm like, oh, why is this fork on the right side? Why is it on the left side? So you now know this is the only fork that stays on the right side. Then you have your wine glasses. You have your red wine glass, you have your white wine glass, then you have your champagne flute. Then you have your bread plate and you have your you have your butter spreader, which is the shape, you know, of your butter spreader. Okay, so I'm going to zoom so we can see the formal place setting. So this is for a formal place setting. Remember that I said earlier that you don't have to have all these utensils, you know, at the same time. But because I wanted to show us, you know, some different cutlery, so you'll be able to identify them when you see them in a fine dining environment. For example, I wanted to show us the fish knife. I wanted to show us the fish fork. That's why I actually infused it in this setting. Then also I wanted to show us the oyster fork, the only fork that stays on your right side. So this is for a formal place setting. Here, remember, you see your, let's go over to this side. Okay, now this is the oyster fork. Remember, there's the only fork that has 3 turns. Then you have your fish knife, which I showed us earlier. The shape is very different. Then the fish fork, the shape is also different. So this is, here you have, good, you have your dessert fork, you have your dessert spoon, that is, yes, that's your dessert, yes, here, your dessert fork, your dessert spoon for your sweet. Then you have your bread plates, and your butter spreader. So this is, then of course you have your glasses here, your water goblet, your red wine glass, your white wine glass, and your champagne float. Remember, we said in our previous video, so I need you to go watch that other video where we talked about how our wine complements our meal. So this is for a formal setting, and we said, when you dine from outside in. So for example, now we have this like this. That means it's possible if you get into a fine dining environment and you have this thing, for example, set like this. It means your first course for that meal is going to be, shellfish. This is your oyster fork. That's it. So this is going to be your first course. Once you're done with that, that means the next course is going to be soup. That's why you have the soup spoon. So you walk from outside in. You don't come into a dining environment and you just pick any cutlery. Oh, you just see this, oh, I like this, let me use this knife. No, you don't use what you feel you like. Every cutlery that has been placed on the table serves a purpose. So that's why we need to know which cutlery to use for which particular course meal. You don't say, oh, I'm more comfortable with the dinner knife. Meanwhile, you're not eating the entree at that time. You're eating maybe the fish. So what you need to use is the fish knife when you're eating, a fish dish. So this is how, a formal place setting looks. Remember, I said earlier, sometimes it could be a 12-course meal, but you don't find all the utensils placed at the same time. Most times is for a 3-course meal or a 4-course meal. Even if they're going to serve you a 7-course meal or a 12-course meal, as you're done with a particular course, the table is cleared for the next course that will be served. So it's important you're able to identify so you can be comfortable in any dining situation. Okay, let's look at the informal, which is the casual place setting. Remember, you have your table. Now, the informal place setting, you can actually have any color of, tablecloth that you so desire, So let's assume we're also using the white tablecloth. Now, you can either use a table mat. You can either, have a table mat. This is a table mat. You can either have a table mat on your tablecloth, or you can have a plate charger. A plate charger on the tablecloth. Then you have your dinner plate. Remember, this is a casual place setting. Then on your left, we're going to use this. This is a napkin. On your left, you have your napkin. Then you have your dinner. Now, when you're setting your table, remember the tines of the fork is placed upwards, not downwards. So you have your fork on the left. I'm going to zoom so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So you have your fork on the left side, then you have your dinner knife on the right side. Then let's assume you're gonna have, like, an appetizer or like a soup. You have your soup spoon on your right. This is an informal, place setting. So let me zoom for you to actually see it. So this is for your informal place setting. Your fork is on your left side with your napkin. Your plate is on top of your plate charger or your table mat. I prefer to use a plate charger. Then on your right side, you have your dinner knife and you have your soup spoon. If you decide to, have soup as your appetizer, then you have your water goblet. So this is an informal place setting. Now I want to show us something. In setting the table, now this is your knife. This is the blade of the knife. The sharp side should always face inwards, this way, not this way. So it should always face inward. So this is your informal place setting. So please share some of your dining experiences. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing the next video. Bye bye.